And as we take a minute to transition to our next speaker who's virtual, I'll just continue to encourage those who are online to say hi to us in the Q&A, tell us where you're signing in from. We'd love to hear from you, and hopefully I'll give some shout outs to those who are joining from all over the world before we go off to lunch. But with that, our next speaker is Success David, who is joining us from Nigeria. Let me just adjust a few settings here and we'll get started. Just give me one moment, Success. All right, we should be all set to go. So please take it away and just let me know as you'd like me to advance your slides.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll never forget the day I lost my 8-month-old nephew to death as a result of severe malaria. As we already know, malaria is a global burden that have taken thousands of lives, most especially children under the age of 5 and pregnant women. And this killer disease is predominantly in sub-Saharan Africa. I am Success David, a final year pharmacy student at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and I'll be presenting an abstract on awareness, perception, and willingness of Nigerians to take the RTS Malaria Vaccine. Next slide. According to the WHO malaria report, Nigeria accounts for about 25% of global malaria cases and 27% of global malaria deaths in 2019. Recent efforts globally to combat malaria has increased significantly, and intervention over the years focuses on distribution of artemisinin combination therapy, indoor residual spraying, and insecticide-treated nets. However, the emergence of resistance to ACT drugs has hampered the success of this intervention. And it's no doubt that a safe, effective, and affordable malaria vaccine would create a powerful public health benefit, therefore closing the gap left by other interventions. The remarkable success of vaccine against polio, measles, and whooping cough has proven that vaccination is crucial in eradication of disease and improving public health. Therefore, the aim of this study is to assess the knowledge, perception, and willingness of Nigerians to uptake this vaccination. And the significance of this study would be beneficial for public health stakeholders to build a public health campaign on vaccination and also invest in public health education. Next slide. The method for this research was a cross-sectional survey that comprised of 19 open and close-ended questions. And this study instrument was a questionnaire which was administered to Nigerians both physically and through social media platforms such as the WhatsApp, Facebook, using a convenient sampling method. And the sections comprises in the questionnaire was the respondent demographic characteristics, awareness, perception, and willingness to take the malaria vaccines. The data was collected and was analyzed using the SPSS version 25. Next slide. A total of 800 participants willingly volunteered to partake in this research. And looking at the knowledge section, this knowledge section analyzed the knowledge of the participants on malaria. As you can see from the charts, 48% of those respondents have the correct knowledge of the signs of malaria, whereas a greater number, 52%, do not have the right knowledge. This is an urge for public health stakeholders to invest in health education in order to create awareness on current diseases and the possible signs and symptoms for such diseases. Again, we saw that 78% of the respondents have the right knowledge that Plasmodium falciparum is the cause of malaria, while 22% do not have the right knowledge. Moving forward, 94% of the respondents have the right knowledge that mosquito is the vector insect that carries malaria, while a minority of 6% do not have the right knowledge. Furthermore, 91% of those respondents have the right knowledge that malaria cannot be transferred from person to person through direct contact, whereas we saw that only 9% of those respondents do not have the right knowledge for that. However, when we come to the question of whether malaria is endemic in Nigeria, we saw that minority of the respondents, such as 7%, do not have the right knowledge that malaria is endemic in Nigeria. This also buttresses the point to invest in public health education in order to create awareness on the current diseases such as malaria and other diseases that are endemic in the country. Next slide. Over to the willingness section, as we can see from the displayed bar charts, we can see that a greater number, 62% of these respondents, are willing to uptake this RTS vaccine if made available, while 12% are not willing to take this vaccine, whereas 26% are not sure whether to uptake this vaccination or not. Next slide. Here in the perception section, we can see that not up to 50% of the respondents are aware of the malaria vaccine. This entails that although effort has been made to increase awareness about malaria, but there is need for intensifying those efforts in order to spread more awareness on the malaria vaccine in our country. Again, 60.9% of those respondents think that vaccination would be beneficial in preventing malaria. And this could be as a result of the previous success as a result of vaccines against previous diseases in the past. Greater number, 75% of the respondents think that vaccine would save the cost spent on malaria treatment. This is a pointer that the economic and financial burden malaria poses on the household individuals in Nigeria. However, only minority, 34.6%, do think that this vaccine is effective. There is a recurrent pattern of doubt over the effectiveness of vaccine as evidenced in polio and COVID-19 vaccination program. So this could result to the hesitancy of participants to uptake or believe that vaccines would be effective as they are afraid of maybe some sudden side effects that may arise as a result of the vaccine. Next slide. Our findings highlight the need for public health stakeholders to address the barriers to vaccine in order to ensure optimal malaria coverage, such as investing in health education and ensuring effective communication. As we saw in the knowledge section, we actually observed that just a majority of the participants do not know the possible signs of malaria. Neither are they aware or knowledgeable about the malaria is endemic in the country. So there is need to invest in health education and ensure effective communication, and also provide possible intervention. This could reduce the opposition and increase the uptake of this vaccination. Again, informing the population about the vaccine and giving them assurance for its safety. We also saw in the perception section that minority of the participants only think that this vaccine would be effective. So there is need to create awareness on the effectiveness of this vaccine, and as well assure these participants on the need for the safety of this vaccination when they take it. Finally, ensuring the affordability of the vaccine. According to World Bank, 23 out of the 27 countries currently rank as low-income countries in Africa. And this implies that Africa is regarded as one of the poorest continents in the world. Therefore, affordability should be considered as one of the important points when designing vaccination program. Hence, intervention that does not have any cost attached to it has possibly shown the likelihood of achieving greater uptake from the individuals. Next slide. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Success, for that important presentation. I'll invite questions from the Q&A online or those in the room. Yes, please.
So thank you for that nice talk. Your data showed that 12% of your survey respondents were unwilling to take the vaccine, while 24% were unsure. Now, is that reluctance mainly due to the fact that they think it won't be effective, or they think it's not safe, or is it something else?
Yeah, most of the participants think that the vaccines would have some side effects. Others were as a result of cultural and religious biases that actually made them not to be willing or not sure of whether to uptake the vaccines or not.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Hi, really great talk. I was wondering what the distribution of age of the respondents are, and also like their geographical location in Nigeria.
Okay, we actually for the age our age restriction from 18 years to above that was actually eligible to participate in this research. Then for the country, we actually covered, like I said before, it was 800 participants volunteered to participate in this research. So we actually tried as much as possible to cover the regions in Nigeria. Though there are some limitations, we hope to improve next time by reaching out to a greater or larger number of people.
Yes, Dr.
In other parts of Africa, the traditional healers are very, very numerous. Is it possible that some of this information could be passed along, working together with the traditional healers? Zambia, Dr. Chuba has met with all the local traditional healers and made it clear that they do have their own domains of interests, and children with fevers go to the Matcha clinic.
Sorry, I could not get what you said, please.
I can clarify a bit, Success. So I
Okay.
think the question is, Dr. Agar was asking was, what are, there is this knowledge gap that you've demonstrated, and he's suggesting there are various venues through which to deliver knowledge, whether it be cultural leaders, traditional leaders, political leaders. I think he was thinking more about cultural leaders. Is that an avenue for delivering information in this context?
Well, there is need to actually meet with the head of each community, like the cultural leaders of this community. That is why I actually mentioned that there is need for what effective communication. When you meet them and then tell them, try as much as possible to be explicit and try to discuss the implication of not keying into the provided intervention. So when you try to explain to them, tell them that this is what is happening and then this is the possible intervention. I believe when there is an effective communication, because when there is an effective communication to the participants or to the community, trust is actually built. When this trust is built, then there is likelihood that they will be willing to accept whatsoever intervention that is being provided.
Thank you. We'll go with an online question.
Which population specifically, like which population groups did you interview, and was this study done in urban or rural areas?
Sorry, can you clarify me on the question again?
I can repeat the question. So the
Okay.
question was, which populations with respect to urban versus rural did you access? I think you talked a bit about geography and age structure, but with regards to rural and urbanicity, who were you able to interview?
Well, like I said, this is a questionnaire that was distributed to those that were willing to participate. So those that were not willing to participate, we did not really bother them to or cajole them into joining the survey. So, and then this is just a little number or little percentage of the total population in Nigeria as a country, and we believe to advance more as time goes on.
Thank you, success. And thank you for your presentation. I think we'll move on. Your presentation reminds us, and I think helps contextualize us, that the challenges that we have to address in malaria go across the spectrum of science, from laboratory science to social science. And I think it's wonderful that we have a mixture of these types of presentations today.